Meeting Charles Kennan for the first time was nothing short of unpleasant. He had just stepped down from the podium, giving me a fleeting glance filled with disdain, saying, "Dating me? Now that's a nice thought." Later, Charles Kennan would often whisper in my ear, "Josephine Wallace, I really like you. Josephine Wallace, wake up. Charles Kennan is on stage." My roommate, Abigail Garcia, pulled me from my daze, and for a moment, I had no idea where I was. Looking up, I saw a neat line of red text, "A university freshman welcome ceremony." The kicker. I was already a sophomore. This semester, our college moved from the old campus to the new one. Since the old and new campuses were quite far apart, we were more or less treated as freshmen. So, the school had us participate in the welcome ceremony alongside the new students. I get it, the auditorium is too big to accommodate all the freshmen, so we were just filling seats. Their explanation was truly elaborate. I wonder why they didn't just use that budget to build another cafeteria. "What are you thinking about?" Abigail Garcia waved her hand in front of my face, snapping me back to reality. "Look at the podium." "Oh, right." I lifted my eyes and was immediately struck by the legs of the student representative. I blinked. Wow, those are some long legs. Meanwhile, Abigail Garcia was already swooning beside me. "Help. I've seen him on the confession wall so many times. Thank you, a university, for moving us to the new campus. I can actually see Charles Kennan in person." I was confused. "Oh, who is this tall guy?" Just then, the long legs adjusted the microphone height, and a clear voice resonated in the auditorium. "Hello, dear juniors and seniors, teachers and leaders. I am Charles Kennan, a junior." He was tall, and since the microphone was fixed in length, even when adjusted it was still a bit far from him. He leaned slightly forward, his tone crisp. The order in the auditorium momentarily unraveled. Now I could see a sign beside him, with bold letters stating, "Charles Kennan." He was dressed in a sleek black suit, with a straight nose and slightly upturned almond eyes. Under the bright white lights, his features were sharp and distinct. The speech content seemed rather ordinary, but coming from his mouth, it felt different. His expression was indifferent, and he exuded an air of arrogance. He seemed hard to approach. Finally, the ceremony came to an end. Abigail Garcia clutched my arm as we stealthily slipped out through a side door. We initially thought to avoid the crowd, but instead, we bumped into a senior who had been pestering me since last year. I felt awkward and tugged at Abigail to leave, but he called out, "Josephine Wallace, I've been waiting for you." Who would have thought we'd truly meet? We must have quite a connection. Oh no, I thought. Is he using a dating app for his cheesy lines? Unfortunately, I had no way to escape. Senior, is there something you need from me?" He scratched his head. "I just wanted to ask if you're considering dating anyone. When I told you I liked you, you said you weren't looking for a relationship right now." Before I could respond, he added, "I'll wait until you're ready." I wanted to send him a sweat emoji from afar to express my current frustration. It's better to just rip the band-aid off. I sighed. "Actually, senior, I already like someone, so I'm sorry." I gave a little fabricated performance as well. Sure enough, his expression froze for a moment. "Can you tell me who it is?" "Don't lie to me." This put me in a tough spot. "I only know a few guys." At that moment, Abigail Garcia suddenly pinched my arm and whispered, "Charles Kennan. Charles Kennan." I had an epiphany. There's my handsome candidate right there. "Sorry for using your name like this." So, I immediately told him, "I like Charles Kennan, the one who just spoke at the ceremony." "When did this happen?" I blinked. "Can't remember exactly, but I've liked him for a long time." Finally watching the senior walk away in disappointment, I let out a sigh, only to find Abigail Garcia looking despondent. I nudged her. "What's wrong? You were quick to react just now." Abigail Garcia buried her face in her hands. "I was trying to tell you that Charles Kennan was coming." I was taken aback. Before I could turn to look, a tall figure entered my line of sight. My immediate reaction was still about his long legs. What if he heard that conversation? I opened my mouth but couldn't find the words. Yet, Charles Kennan gave me a fleeting glance with a smirk. But it wasn't a friendly smile, it was mocking. "Junior, dating me," he chuckled softly, mischief dancing in his almond eyes. What a beautiful thought, I thought. What kind of a statement is that? Could you at least align it with your aloof, serious persona? I felt just as trapped as he made me. I had simply made up a lie to brush off the senior, and who would have thought the true main character was right behind me? Charles Kennan didn't give me a chance to explain and briskly walked away, leaving me and Abigail Garcia. With worry on her face, Abigail Garcia asked, "What do we do? Do you think he got a bad impression?" I shook my head. "It doesn't matter, I probably won't see him again anyway." I meant it, after all, we weren't even in the same department. We wouldn't have to deal with each other again, so I was too lazy to explain anything. That evening, knowing that a university was organizing a camping trip this weekend, I went to the school store to stock up on snacks. I deliberately chose a later time to avoid the crowds. With my arms full of snacks, I spotted my favorite wavy potato chips high on the shelf. I reached for them, but unfortunately, the shelf was too high, and even on tiptoes I couldn't grab them. Just as I was about to turn around and ask the store attendant for help, I felt a warm presence at my back. Next, I saw a slender hand hovering in front of me, holding the potato chips. "You wanted this. Here you go." His voice was clear and had a slight upturn. "Ah, yes, thank you." I hurriedly replied, turning around to find a stunningly handsome face. "No problem, just a small favor," he said casually, but when he saw my face, he paused. "It's you." I was baffled, with a questioning look on my face. "Who are you?" He seemed amused by my response, his tone slow and teasing. "Didn't you say you liked me for a long time? Now playing the amnesiac, eh?" I didn't recall having such a heartfelt history. He sighed, pointing to his face. "I'm half of a university's handsome quotient. You really don't recognize me." I murmured, "Wow, what a coincidence." "Coincidence? What do you mean?" "I'm the other half of a university's handsome quotient." I raised an eyebrow. "Buddy, that line is so last season." Just as I said this, I suddenly froze. Wait, was he Charles Kennan? He looked a bit different from at the welcome ceremony. At that formal event, his fringe had been styled with hair gel. Now, in the store, he wore a hoodie, his hair tousled as if he just stepped out of the shower, smelling fresh. Yet, those almond eyes were unmistakably his. Noting the change in my expression, Charles Kennan smiled. Pretty sweet looking with quite the fiery temper. "Do you recognize me now?" I nodded. "Sorry, I was just kidding about this morning." "No worries, Junior. Liking me isn't something to be shy about, I can understand." I thought. Charles Kennan's persona had shifted from a serious gentleman in the morning to a playful flirt in an instant. He radiated a vibe of 8 words. Irresistibly charming, but not responsible. Back in the dorm, Abigail Garcia couldn't help but ask why I looked so drained after just grabbing snacks. I didn't want to mention Charles Kennan, as Abigail was somewhat of a fan. If she found out that the seemingly serious guy had such a flirty side, she might be disappointed. I was so tired that I dozed off. The next morning, I woke up to see it was already 7:40. Oh no. I have an 8 a.m. elective class. In all of a university, only the mathematical modeling elective is at 8 a.m. When selecting classes, I had no idea why I picked such a high failure rate elective at an inconvenient hour. A senior told me it's because the lecturer is older, accustomed to early mornings, and usually isn't on campus in the afternoons, which is why his class is scheduled so early. Seeing everyone still asleep, I hurriedly washed up and ran out of the dorm toward class. But I still didn't make it. The bell rang just as I reached the 3rd floor, 20 meters away from the classroom. The only consolation was realizing someone else was running late with me. That person stood against the light, tall and unhurried, as if they weren't late at all. As I got closer, I recognized him, Charles Kennan. He turned around and glanced at me, squinting slightly. "Oh, it's the junior." Charles Kennan smiled. "You came all the way here just for me." "My charm is that great. I'm here for an elective course." I sighed. What a coincidence. Me too. I looked at his relaxed expression. "You're late. Aren't you at all anxious?" "Being late is being late. No point in rushing, the outcome won't change." Charles Kennan spoke casually, walking to the already closed classroom door and knocking. "This is my first class of the semester, and I'm met with latecomers. The old lecturer had a stern face. Come over and sign your name. One Charles Kennan, one Josephine Wallace, right? You're the last two left on the list. I obediently walked over to sign my name, and Charles Kennan behind me smiled. Sorry, teacher. I was reviewing last night and overslept. Hearing that, I almost choked on my own saliva. He's quite the smooth talker. Don't let it happen again. Get to your seats. The lecturer's tone softened a little. I glanced around the classroom and found only the last two connected seats left. I sighed inwardly and took my seat, one after the other with Charles Kennan. After that, I quietly listened to the lecture, and barely made it to the end of class, grabbing my bag and running out the door. I had a reason to run. I needed to pick up my takeout because I was hungry. Usually, I prefer to order from a few specific, less common places. That way, every time I go to the entrance to grab my food, I can easily spot the unique packaging. What a clever little trick I have. Indeed, at the school gate among a bunch of plastic bags, a brown wooden packaging bag stood out like a crane among chickens. I grabbed it and headed back to the dorm, the aroma quickly waking up my roommates, who had just taken a long nap. Abigail Garcia came over to share in the feast, complimenting, "The sesame sauce in the noodles you ordered today is delicious." I was stunned. Looking at the takeout on the table, I clearly ordered peanut sauce, so why was there sesame sauce? With an uneasy heart, I looked at the receipt and confirmed the recipient's name. The name on the takeout receipt clearly matched his. What a coincidence. I opened the chat group for the mathematical modeling elective course, searched for Charles Kennan's name, and glanced at his WeChat ID. Oh no, the last 4 digits matched those on the order receipt. What a haunting presence. I sighed for the umpteenth time today, and clicked on the friend request. Sure enough, Charles Kennan accepted it almost immediately. I quickly explained, "I accidentally took your takeout. I'll transfer you the money now, I'm sorry." Charles Kennan didn't reply. After a while, he sent a voice message. I put on my headphones, and opened his voice message. Again. "It's no big deal, I understand. No, I also ordered from this place. If you don't believe me, I can send you a screenshot." Saying that, I sent him the screenshot. Charles Kennan, not bad. You even know what takeout I usually order to get close to me. I was too lazy to explain and transferred him 30 yuan. He refunded it back. Charles Kennan then directly called me on WeChat, startling me so much that I almost dropped my phone, trying to hang up but accidentally answered. "Josephine Wallace. You don't need to give me the money." Charles Kennan's voice was clear in my ears. "I'm at the door, and I picked up the order you placed." "Oh, that's fine." Thinking the conversation would end there, who would have thought that Charles Kennan didn't hang up but instead asked, "Do you like peanut sauce?" "Ah, right." I was a bit stunned. Charles Kennan chuckled on the voice message, his breath so clear it felt like it was brushing against my ear. "Okay, got it." Finally, the day for the autumn outing arrived. Abigail Garcia mentioned that only freshmen and sophomores have the outing, and there won't be any after that. When she said the words, "junior," a certain face unconsciously flashed through my mind. I quickly brushed the thought away. Why think about him? The surroundings were quite chaotic that day, as the school bus was stop and go, not divided by departments. After some difficulty, Abigail Garcia and I managed to find a relatively empty bus and jumped on. Maybe it was our lively voices that caught attention because a guy sitting in the back row, who had been napping under his hat, lifted it up. It was a very fair-skinned face, showing a hint of displeasure. When our eyes met, I was dumbfounded. Charles Kennan. Isn't he in his junior year? Why is he here? I turned to pull Abigail Garcia to another bus, but Charles Kennan beat me to it. His tone languid. "Josephine Wallace. Why are you hiding?" Abigail Garcia started to stutter. "Why you two are so familiar now?" I sighed. "It's a long story. Better not to tell." Charles Kennan patted the seat beside him. "Come over." Abigail Garcia pushed me from behind. "Go on." The front of the bus was lively, but I, sitting in the back, couldn't connect with their happiness. "You're a junior, right? Why are you going with us?" I couldn't help but ask him. Charles Kennan adjusted his hat, still in a laid-back tone. "I didn't go last year, and my social practice credits aren't enough, so I have to make up for it this year. Honestly, it was my first time seeing someone so boldly state they lack credits as if it were something to be proud of. Do you want some candy? Charles Kennan asked, hands crossed over his chest, leaning his head to the side. What kind of candy? I hadn't eaten anything in the morning, and was feeling a bit hungry. Charles Kennan opened his palm in front of me. Here, take it, peanut candy. For some reason, Charles Kennan's words came across as strangely gentle. I blinked and smiled. Sure, I want some. But Charles Kennan sighed. Josephine Wallace. Yeah. I looked up, meeting his gaze. Charles Kennan had a slightly helpless expression, his eyes downcast. Eat it, just eat it. Why are you being so spoiled with me? By the time we arrived at the mountain resort, it was afternoon. When I woke up, I realized I had just been leaning on Charles Kennan's shoulder. I immediately sat up straight. Thankfully, Charles Kennan didn't wake up. From this angle, his eyelashes were so long, his skin was flawless, with features that could be painted. If only Charles Kennan didn't have such a cocky attitude, I might really like him. Wait, Josephine Wallace, what are you thinking? Have you not fully woken up? I smacked my head and turned back. Charles Kennan was looking at me, with a, "Are you crazy?" expression. What are you doing? Nothing, nothing. I felt inexplicably guilty. We're here. Let's get off the bus. Since there was a bonfire party that night, the teacher had everyone hike up the mountain in the afternoon to collect some branches, sticks, and dried leaves. The scenery on the mountain was beautiful. The breeze felt cool, and occasionally dried leaves would swirl around our ankles. With so many people around, I gradually realized that I had lost sight of Abigail Garcia. However, Charles Kennan was casually walking beside me, making the girls passing by look back repeatedly. Can you walk a bit more discreetly? I sighed. I'm very discreet. Charles Kennan feigned innocence, but he looked at me and leaned down with a smile. How do you know they aren't looking at you? Annoyed, I walked toward a side path, not wanting to walk alongside this arrogant guy anymore. But fate had other plans. I stepped onto a loose patch of dirt, twisted my ankle, and fell. I was in pain and felt like crying when Charles Kennan quickly caught up, saw me sitting on the ground, and immediately squatted down, looking completely different from before. How did you twist your ankle? Can't you watch where you're going? Let me see if you can move it. I shook my head. It hurts. Get on. I'll carry you down the mountain. Charles Kennan frowned. Don't wander off alone. This time's fine. But what if I wasn't around next time? With that, he picked me up, and even asked if the position was comfortable, and if it hurt. After I confirmed, Charles Kennan found a less crowded way down and carried me. I have the medical teacher's phone number. If you feel okay, take my phone from my pocket and text him. Oh. I clutched Charles Kennan's collar with one hand while reaching down. Charles Kennan smirked. Josephine Wallace, you're small but not timid. Where are you touching now? You told me to reach into your pocket. Into the sweatshirt pocket. Charles Kennan laughed. I didn't say to reach into my pants pocket. That's taking advantage of me. I felt my ears turn red as I realized the misunderstanding. But I still retorted, you didn't make it clear. Okay, I'm wrong. Charles Kennan seemed to be in a good mood. Rest well in your room afterward. I just checked. It's not too serious. Just lie down for 2 days and you'll be back to your usual self. Be careful next time. Got it. I got it, I replied very softly. After that autumn outing, I didn't see Charles Kennan again. The next time we met was during the math modeling elective course. It was a strange day. The class was temporarily rescheduled to start at 7 in the evening because the old lecturer had business outside during the day. Luckily, not many people chose this course due to the high failure rate, so rescheduling wasn't difficult, and everyone happened to be free that night. I arrived relatively early, and when I got to the classroom, Charles Kennan was absent. Soon, other girls took the seat next to me. The class was supposed to end at 8:40, and just before the bell rang, it suddenly began to rain heavily outside. Fortunately, thanks to Abigail Garcia, she insisted I take an umbrella before leaving the dorm, predicting that it might rain at that hour. As people began to leave, I glanced at Charles Kennan's seat, and saw that he had somehow left. I put on my backpack, and exited through a more secluded door, holding the umbrella as I walked past the dripping camphor tree avenue. After a few steps, I spotted Charles Kennan standing by the roadside, looking at his phone beneath the eaves. He still had that aristocratic demeanor. Other boys without umbrellas just braved the rain back. But he was the one sending messages, sharing an umbrella. I suppose we can call ourselves friends, right? Charles Kennan waved at me first. I walked over. Can I share your umbrella? I extended my umbrella a little. Charles Kennan paused for a moment, his expression stiffening. What did you just say? Umbrella, I said nonchalantly. Can I share it with you? Charles Kennan let out a chuckle. I thought you said something else. What? Nothing. Kids just don't understand. Charles Kennan looked down and sent a voice message to his friend, telling them not to bring an umbrella. Then he took my umbrella, his cool fingertips brushing against my palm. The street light above illuminated him from behind, casting sharp shadows across his features. Suddenly, a car zoomed past us with a honk. Charles Kennan quickly pulled me into his arms. He let go of me only after the car had driven a distance away. Switch places. You walk on the inside. Charles Kennan stopped looking at me. I noticed his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. Oh. The day before dinner, during a class on technology and innovation, the teacher announced an upcoming high-profile tech competition, then dismissed us. Since we're in software design, everyone should fully utilize their knowledge and actively participate, especially those who excel in C programming. Abigail Garcia sighed beside me. Shay. Every year it's the upperclassmen leading the charge in this competition. The teacher just wants us to be sacrificial lambs. I chose not to comment. Let's go. It's time for dinner. On the way back to the dorm, I spotted Charles Kennan leaning against a lamppost with one hand in his pocket, his shadow stretching long. What stood out the most were his long legs. Seriously, they were long. Abigail Garcia teased. Are you waiting for him? I shook my head. No idea. In the next moment, Charles Kennan started walking towards us. Abigail Garcia quickly released my hand and slipped away. Feeling a little sheepish, I said, "What's up? I saw your transcript. You're pretty good at C programming." I was taken aback. Where did you see it? Our class has the same teacher, and I had him in my second year too. Charles Kennan paused before adding with a smile, "Scoring full marks on the final from the professor is impressive. Little genius. He's our tech innovation group's mentor. We still need someone on our team, and the professor recommended you to me." Charles Kennan bent down, meeting my gaze at eye level. "Josephine Wallace, want to join the competition? We also have Blake from C University on our team. I brought him in, and he's very strong. If I remember correctly, you're also from C City, right?" I blinked, nodding. "Yeah, good. So, shall we go together? Once we enter the provincial finals, I'll share my university project grant with you." I shook my head. "I don't need the money." "I know," Charles Kennan replied with a smile, lowering his voice a bit, "but I really want to give it to you." Thump thump. This felt strange. I think I heard my own heartbeat. For the next month, as the only sophomore in our team, I was too nervous to slack off. Finally, the day of our presentation arrived. I changed into formal attire in the locker room, and as I stepped outside, I saw a girl heading towards Charles Kennan, who was standing nearby, and accidentally bumped into him. I thought, that acting was honestly hard to watch. "Sorry, I bumped into you," the girl said, her cheeks flushing slightly. Can I have your wishet?" I've heard those words before and could almost picture Charles Kennan casually pulling out his phone. "Oh. You really were not careful." Charles Kennan raised an eyebrow, glancing at me standing a distance away, then frowned. "What are you standing there for? Everyone's left. We're just waiting for you. Professor Jiang is treating us to dinner tonight, so hurry up." "Hey. Wait, this isn't what I imagined at all." "Hey." I jogged to catch up. "Why don't you just share your wishet with her?" "Share it with her? Why?" Charles Kennan suddenly stopped, and I didn't manage to brake in time, bumping into his back with a thud. That jolt made my head spin. "Ouch." Charles Kennan quickly bent down, the back of his hand brushing against my forehead. "Does it hurt? What happened?" "Sorry, I shouldn't have stopped so suddenly." "Why did you stop?" I swatted his hand away. Don't take advantage of me." Charles Kennan chuckled. "Your temper is getting worse. Who will want you as a girlfriend in the future?" "That's none of your business." I huffed. During dinner, the professor praised our work and pointed out some areas for improvement, hoping we'd excel in the provincial competition. Later that night, Charles Kennan walked me back to the dorm. By the way, Charles Kennan, I saw a stunning girl on Blake's phone screen earlier. Is she his girlfriend? I was feeling a bit gossipy, and besides, the girl really was beautiful, like the kind that could walk the red carpet anytime. Pretty, right? She's not bad, but I think you're prettier. Charles Kennan shrugged. That's his goddess from C University. Her name is Olive, I think. But Blake isn't doing well. He hasn't even managed to speak to his goddess yet. I was a bit skeptical. Really? That's such a shame. Blake is a good guy. Doesn't Olive like him? Charles Kennan grabbed my wrist. Josephine Wallace, are you blind? What's so great about Blake? It took me quite a bit of effort to convince him that I was just casually mentioning it. I didn't understand why he reacted that way. Blake was genuinely a decent person. The surroundings were quiet, and the little alley behind the school was always tranquil. November was ending without me even realizing it. By the way, Charles Kennan stopped, taking out a small gift bag from his backpack and handing it to me. This is for you. What is it? I was surprised. Birthday gift. My eyes widened. You remember my birthday? Dummy. I saw it on the Tech Innovation Competition registration form. I didn't expect it to coincide with the presentation today. Is this really for me? I cautiously accepted it. Thank you. I'm so happy. I didn't think you'd remember my birthday. Why wouldn't I remember? Heh. I was a bit puzzled by his words. Can't you tell? Charles Kennan said with a smirk, leaning in close, his nose almost touching mine. The shabby little convenience store next door was lit by soft yellow lights, illuminating the brown recliner at the entrance. The moonlight cast a gentle glow on his face. In those charming peach blossom eyes, an infinite softness emerged. Josephine Wallace, I'm pursuing you now. Got it. Only at this moment did I understand that all the mixed feelings and elusive thoughts I had about Charles Kennan over the past month were not without reason. I took a few steps back and fled once again. When Abigail Garcia learned about Charles Kennan's confession, she wasn't surprised at all. I noticed ages ago. You're just confused. You know, before I got to know him, I heard a lot of rumors, saying he likes to flirt but isn't responsible. But he's very serious with you. We bystanders can see that. She sat beside me, holding my hand with a sincere tone. A guy like that is a once-in-a-lifetime find. It's a pity he's only here messing around. I think, Josephine Wallace, you can accept it. My mind was a mess. What on earth are you talking about? When faced with challenges, it's best to sleep on it. But the next morning, our early math modeling class was unavoidable. No escaping it. Knowing Charles Kennan liked to be punctual, I arrived at the classroom early and specifically chose a seat next to someone already there. Quickly getting surrounded by people, as soon as class ended, I bolted out faster than a rabbit. Unfortunately, things don't always go as planned. After the afternoon class, a new message popped up in the Tech Innovation Competition group. The professor announced a sudden offline meeting, and if Blake wasn't available at C University, he could join us on the phone. Later that night, I sluggishly made my way to the meeting room, but there was only Charles Kennan inside. Isn't he usually half an hour early? Why was he being so lackadaisical this time? Charles Kennan approached me, opening his palms. I brought you something. This time, it was a chocolate peanut candy. I stammered. Thank you. You're welcome. Charles Kennan patted my head. Why are you so nervous? Before I could say anything else, the professor walked in, his face warm and friendly. Oh, you two arrived early. Such a nice pair. I replied. Professor, that's not how you use that idiom. The professor laughed heartily. We're all science students. We don't care for that. After the meeting, everyone left, and I asked to study in the meeting room for a while. After all, we had booked the classroom for today. It was quiet, and it was perfect for studying. The professor shared the door's code with me, asking me to lock it when I left. I stayed late working on our small program simulated operation assignment. After finally finishing, I stretched, locked the door, and prepared to head back. Just as I left the building where the meeting room was located, I felt someone tugging my backpack from behind. Hey, I exclaimed, turning around only to find Charles Kennan looking at me. It's me. Oh, you scared me. I patted my chest. What are you doing here so late? Well, you know it's late. Charles Kennan sounded a bit angry. Even on campus, it can be dangerous at night. Don't stay alone so late in the future. Who knows why? But I blurted out, isn't it fine with you here? For a moment, the atmosphere froze, and no one spoke. I wanted to slap myself. I just said that without thinking, but Charles Kennan bent down, slowly resting his forehead gently against my shoulder. Charles Kennan, please, don't tease me. Charles Kennan's voice was almost choked. Josephine Wallace, if you keep shouting like that, I won't be nice to you. I jumped back, startled. Oh, I'm sorry. Charles Kennan ran his hand through his hair. It's okay. Did I scare you? Not really. I forced myself to gather my composure. I'm not clueless. Charles Kennan's tone became playful. Clueless. I couldn't hold back against that, and my ears turned red. Charles Kennan chuckled softly. He was backlit, and the curve of his smile was just right. You little brat, what's with the act? I wasn't planning to bully you right now. I was like, what's he talking about at this time of night? Help, help, help. When I got back to the dorm, just as I burrowed under the covers, I received a message from Charles Kennan. Are you busy? I replied, not busy. Can I call? I need to talk to you. I answered, what's up? Are you free this Saturday? Charles Kennan paused. I'll take you back to Sea City. Blake is off the market? He's treating. I was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. But you said 2 months ago Blake. I'd stop. Charles Kennan was priding himself on his image, leaving just the line, I'll pick you up at 10 a.m. on Saturday, before hanging up. The next day, I groggily tied my hair into a ponytail, and yawned while standing at the school gate. A flashy car slowly stopped in front of me. I stared in disbelief as the window rolled down, revealing Charles Kennan's face. Get in. You have a driver's license. I opened the door and got in. I had planned to sit in the back seat, but this black and red sports car only had 2 seats. I got up late, and was still a bit tired, so I dozed off a little in Charles Kennan's car. An hour later, we reached Sea City. Finally, I met Blake's girlfriend, the girl he used as his phone wallpaper. According to Charles Kennan, Blake had liked her for a year. Her name was Olive, and she was a particularly bright and beautiful girl, who chatted far more than I did and could banter with anyone at the table. Olive said just to call her Olive. That's what everyone called her. With wide eyes, she said to me, you really look so sweet. You're a million times prettier than in the photos. Oh my God, I'm head over heels. Her personality was really worlds apart from Blake's. Olive opened a bottle of wine and said everyone who could drink should have a little. Charles Kennan turned to me, can you drink? Internally, I thought, I can't. But I said, sure, okay, then I'll be responsible for safely getting you home. I'll drive. So you drink on my behalf. For some reason, I nodded. All right. After that, I didn't really know what happened. When I became a little more aware, I found myself sitting in Charles Kennan's car, and it was already dark outside. My head was pounding. Awake, Charles Kennan asked with a soft laugh. You shouldn't pretend to be okay if you can't drink. Is it because you like me? Heh. Charles Kennan sat up straighter, leaning a bit closer. What did you say? Nothing. No way. I heard it. Charles Kennan fiddled with my hair. Josephine Wallace. Can I call you Wallace? Sure. Stay awake. Okay. He sighed. You really have me at a loss. Wallace. Be my girlfriend. Okay. I heard him, but I wasn't inclined to answer. Still drunk, Charles Kennan scoffed. Hurry up. If you don't speak, I'm going to kiss you. Don't. I was a bit more sober now. You can't do that. I won't. Charles Kennan smiled. He was really good looking. I hadn't seen such a smile in a long time. It was pure, without any teasing or frivolity, just a genuine youthful smile. All right, since you're smiling so beautifully, and your legs are so long, I'll reluctantly agree to it. Riding on the alcohol's buzz, I touched Charles Kennan's face, with such a nice smile. You better not smile at other girls. That night, Charles Kennan took me back to my house in Sea City. Just as he was about to leave, he called out to me, Wallace. Heh. During lunch, Blake's girlfriend was being cutesy with him. Olive. What about it? I'm a bit envious. So, Wallace, can you be cute for me? My expression darkened in an instant. Get lost. Charles Kennan sighed. My girlfriend really has a terrible temper. I stood at the door. When are you leaving? I'll wait for you to go in. Open a window and wave to me. When I got home, the moment I opened the door, my parents were overjoyed. Why are you back so suddenly? A good friend treated me to dinner in Sea City. I came back to stay for a day and will head back tomorrow. I happily hugged my family and chatted for quite a while before realizing I forgot to update Charles Kennan about getting home safely. We lived in a small apartment complex. I ran to the second floor and looked down. Surprisingly, Charles Kennan was still there. I gently called him, Charles Kennan. He looked up. Why did it take so long? I just forgot. I paused. Are you leaving? Yeah, I'll leave once you get home safely. Charles Kennan smiled. By the way, your ponytail looks really good. Yeah. Just as Charles Kennan turned to leave, I suddenly called out to him, Charles Kennan. The moment he turned around, I felt like I lost my mind. I abruptly untied my ponytail and tossed the little hair tie down to him from the second floor. Take this. Put it on your wrist and it's not allowed to come off. Okay. I grinned as I leaned on the railing, watching Charles Kennan bend down to pick up my black hair tie and put it on. He lowered his head, and after a long time, looked back up. Wallace, don't be cute anymore. I really can't handle it. I pulled up the curtains and dashed back inside. So, this is what being in love feels like. During the later science and technology competitions, Olive visited a city twice with Blake, offering some small suggestions as an audience member. She was truly a quick-thinking girl, and every time I praised Olive in front of Charles Kennan, he would lightly tap my head and say, I think you're way better than her. Why do you keep praising others? Are you into her or me? At such times, I could only sigh. Seriously, he could get jealous over anything. Another month passed, and it was a city with occasional snow flurries. Finally, it was the provincial competition day. Olive joined us, watching our presentations and defenses from the audience. In the end, Charles Kennan hung the gold medal around my neck. You've worked hard during this time. I shook my head. Not at all. I should thank you. Olive chuckled. Why are you two being polite to each other here? Let's go. Let's eat. Hey, I'd allow. That night, I had a little more wine, and tipsily walked alongside Charles Kennan on the street. Charles Kennan stopped. My place is nearby. Yeah, want to go? It's not a good idea. It's late and might disturb your parents. Suddenly, Charles Kennan pulled me into his arms, his lips touching mine. After a long moment, he released me. It's my own home. I usually live alone. Oh, I suddenly remembered Charles Kennan normally didn't stay in the dorm. He lived outside. Dizzy, when I snapped back to reality, the bedroom door had already been closed by Charles Kennan. He held my waist, his knee pressed between my legs, calling my name, Wallace. Wallace, I spoke with a choked voice. Why do you always take advantage of me when I drink? Charles Kennan whispered in my ear. Wanting to tease you means I like you? You know that. Wallace, I have more than just long legs. Take it easy. Wallace, Charles Kennan's voice was exceptionally hoarse. Your nails are a bit long. They might be afraid of pain. His voice was so intoxicating. All I wanted to say that whole night was two words. Help me. This New Year's Eve was spent with Charles Kennan, and then the final exams arrived. On the day after the exams, Charles Kennan took me out to eat, planning to take me back to Sea City the next morning. My dad wanted to come get me, and I struggled hard to convince him to let me return by myself. When we got to the restaurant, I comfortably slumped in the armchair, finally done with exams. Tired. Charles Kennan had finished his last exam yesterday. He was in his third year, and had fewer classes than I did. Yeah, I had 10 classes. I sighed. Right now it feels like sitting is a bit tiring. But lying down doesn't feel right either. Whoa, I was still so stressed. Charles Kennan smirked. Save that talk for after midnight tonight. I angrily pinched his arm. Behave yourself outside. At that moment, Charles Kennan's phone rang. He glanced at it. His expression froze for a second before he hung up. I asked, who was it? He shook his head. Telemarketer. Blocked them. I didn't think much of it and enjoyed the sour fish filling my empty stomach. I didn't expect that the next morning, I would see an unfamiliar girl holding Charles Kennan's hand and crying. That girl was incredibly beautiful but had a fragile aura about her, the kind that easily evoked a protective instinct in anyone. If I thought that as a girl, how could a guy not feel the same? I glanced at Charles Kennan's expression. It was flat, a bit impatient, but he didn't push the girl away. I stood inside the dorm entrance, luggage in hand, waiting until the girl in the white coat finally left. I wouldn't doubt my boyfriend. I completely trusted Charles Kennan, but I knew she definitely had some connection with him. I stood there for a moment, and my phone rang. It was Charles Kennan. Why haven't you come down yet? I raised my voice a little. Coming. I'm right at the dorm's entrance. Hurry and help me with the suitcase. Charles Kennan jogged over, helping me carry the suitcase without mentioning anything else. On the way, during the short hour's drive, he didn't bring up anything from that morning. Maybe he hadn't really thought much of it, and honestly, I couldn't be bothered to ask. At the entrance to my neighborhood, Charles Kennan kissed my forehead. I'll come find you during winter break. I smiled. Yeah, I'll wait for you. This year, the new year was quite early, and our family had already started preparing for the holiday goods. Today was New Year's Eve, and I couldn't tell what Charles Kennan was doing right now. I'm currently putting up Spring Festival couplets with my dad when suddenly my phone starts vibrating wildly. I look at the screen. It's Abigail Garcia. What's up? Calling to wish me a happy new year. I answer with a smile, but Abigail Garcia's tone is serious. I just received a photo from an unknown number. I'll send it to you. Can you check if it's recent or old? Heh. I don't quite understand, but I wish it anyway. When I see the photo, my phone almost slips from my grasp. My dad notices something's off. What's wrong? What happened? Oh, nothing. I realized I forgot to send some schoolwork to the class representative, so I'm just going to send it now. I quickly make an excuse, rushing to my bedroom and shutting the door. With trembling hands, I open the photo again. It's that girl, and Charles Kennan. She's hugging him, and it's recent because I see something familiar on Charles Kennan's wrist. He's wearing a little hair tie. It's my hair tie. At that moment, as I come to a realization, I feel strangely calm. I call Abigail Garcia back. It's recent. Abigail swears under her breath. That's his ex-girlfriend from freshman year. They broke up when she went abroad for an exchange program. A lot of people know about this, but I haven't mentioned it since you two got together. Many say Susan Rallayne is Charles Kennan's White Moonlight. No, Josephine Wallace. Don't cry. Charles Kennan's White Moonlight. Susan Rallayne. Even her name sounds so perfect. I'm not crying. I wipe away a single tear that escaped from the corner of my eye. What's there to cry about? I'll wait for him to explain. If he can explain, that would be great. If not, then it's over. I'm not saying I need Charles Kennan. I force a smile. I'll ask him. It's fine, Abigail Garcia. I'm okay. I send the photo to Charles Kennan, and then turn off my phone. I never expected he would travel alone from City A to City C on New Year's Eve, just to knock on my door and tell my dad he was looking for me. I remember vividly how my dad looked at Charles Kennan when he took me away with that stunned expression. Charles Kennan grips my hand tightly, saying, "Wallace, I was wrong. Can you hug me, please?" I gently push him away, maintaining my composure. Charles Kennan, you need to keep your heart clear if you want someone else to come in. My dad taught me that a long time ago. If you cannot do that, you should tell me sooner. No, listen to me. Charles Kennan's eyes are suddenly teary. Susan Rallayne contacted me. I was having dinner with you at the time and immediately blocked her number. The next morning, she found me crying. I thought it was a hassle, so I let her go after she calmed down. I should have told you then, but I thought I wouldn't see her again. Better to avoid causing you unnecessary distress. After that, I didn't see her again. The third time was yesterday. Charles Kennan sighed. She said she wanted to say goodbye one last time, and wouldn't disturb me again. I went, and she suddenly hugged me. That photo was taken by her friend. I didn't expect her to do that. Wallace, I was wrong. I just texted her. Look. He hands me his phone, and one by one, the messages appear before my eyes. Charles Kennan told Susan Rallayne that he now has a girlfriend whom he loves very much, and her behavior has crossed the line. If there's a next time, he wouldn't hold back. This might seem trivial, but it can become a big deal if he wants. So, I hope Susan Ralane can respect our past. It's over, and there's no going back. Okay, this answer is similar to what I expected. Susan Ralane knew enough to send the photo to my good friend, Abigail Garcia, instead of coming straight to me because she was sure Abigail would tell me. If she truly had something with Charles Kennan, she wouldn't have lacked the confidence to approach me directly and assert her claim. I smile and ruffle Charles Kennan's hair. All right, I believe you, but from now on, tell me everything. Charles Kennan's beautiful, tear-filled eyes made my heart ache a little. After all, it was New Year's Eve. How could he drive all the way from City A to City C alone? The road conditions were poor. It snowed, and with traffic, it took him twice as long as usual. Knock, knock, knock. There's a sound at the window. We look up to see my dad smirking. Have you two finished talking? The food's getting cold. Come on, son, let's have a meal together. It's New Year's, after all. At the door, Charles Kennan tightly holds my hand and bows to my dad. Thank you, uncle. My dad waves his hand dismissively. What's there to thank? Just don't let my daughter shed any tears. If it's like today again, I'll show you what it means to be strong and resilient. In the end, I stayed in City A to pursue my graduate studies. Charles Kennan didn't take over the family business. Instead, he started a venture with Blake. Olive and Blake got married last year, and I was part of their chosen wedding party along with Charles Kennan. I also got to know Olive's good friend, Tiffany Wolf, whose name sounds lovely. We call her Zioe. She's a bright girl with a youthful appearance that makes her seem much younger than us. But in fact, we're the same age. Later, I was a bridesmaid for Zioe once again. Olive would tease Charles Kennan in front of us, questioning why he wasn't married yet. Honestly, I wasn't in a rush. I still hadn't graduated from my master's program. I remember it was an ordinary day. Charles Kennan returned to the new student orientation of a university as a distinguished graduate representative. He wore that same black suit, and his charming eyes, high nose, and confident demeanor drew thunderous applause from the audience. As I sat there, I suddenly recalled the first day I met him when he walked past me in that black suit, looking disdainful. Dating me? You must be dreaming. At that moment, the spotlight suddenly fell on me. In a split second, I realized what Charles Kennan was doing. With a bouquet of flowers in hand, he approached me through the crowd. On his wrist, he still wore my little hair tie. Josephine Wallace, will you marry me? I laughed, my eyes crinkling. Marry you? You must be dreaming. Charles Kennan smiled but stayed silent, looking into my eyes with such seriousness that I felt unable to resist. I sighed. All right, I'll reluctantly agree. This story is now complete. Feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the latest content. A lot of novels are updated every day.